It was early spring in 2026 when the quiet town felt a little stir of excitement, though no one knew exactly why. At the far edge of the town, an old mansion had been abandoned for decades, sitting under the shade of large oak trees. Its windows were covered in layers of dust, and the paint on its walls was peeling like forgotten memories. Most townspeople walked past it without a thought, but the moment construction crews arrived to clear the property for renovation, curiosity began to spread like wildfire. The workers had started clearing old furniture, broken tiles, and piles of debris when one of them noticed something unusual in a dark corner of the mansion's grand living room. Under a threadbare tarp and layers of dust, there lay a grand piano. Its wood was scratched and faded, and the keys were yellowed with age, but the shape and size told a story of elegance and importance. It was as if the piano had been hiding from the world, waiting patiently for someone to notice it. The initial reaction among the workers was a mix of surprise and disbelief. "Where did this come from?" one of them whispered. Another shook his head, brushing dust off his overalls, trying to see the piano better. "I don't remember this being here before," he said. But the mansion had been empty for so long that no one really knew what was inside it anymore. It was as if the piano had been a secret, locked away, waiting for the right moment to be discovered. Word spread quickly through the town, first in whispers, then in excited conversations at local shops and cafes. People could hardly believe that such a beautiful instrument had been sitting unnoticed for years, almost forgotten. It wasn't just a piano. To the townspeople, it felt like a lost piece of history, something that connected the present to a past they barely remembered. The mayor, who had heard about the find from the construction crew, decided to visit the mansion himself. He walked through the dusty halls with a mixture of curiosity and amazement, stopping in front of the piano. It looked out of place in the old, crumbling room, yet somehow it seemed to belong there. Its polished curves and intricate design spoke of craftsmanship and care that had survived decades of neglect. The mayor reached out to touch the keys lightly, but a layer of dust covered them, making a faint, muffled sound as his fingers moved across them. Meanwhile, townspeople began visiting the mansion, eager to see the piano for themselves. Some came to remember the past, others came to satisfy their curiosity. Children peeked around corners, eyes wide at the sight of such a grand instrument, while older residents felt a mix of nostalgia and wonder. They remembered stories of concerts held in the mansion decades ago, of music filling the halls and laughter echoing through the rooms. It seemed almost magical to imagine that the same piano could have been part of those moments, sitting quietly, waiting for someone to bring it back to life. The piano itself seemed to have a presence, almost like it was aware of being discovered. Though its wood was scratched and its keys faded, there was an aura of elegance around it. People could imagine the hands that had played it, the music that had once poured from it, and the emotions it must have stirred. Even in its silent state, it felt alive, holding on to memories that no one could see but everyone could feel. As more people came to see the piano, a sense of community formed around it. The town hadn't had anything like this in a long time. Something that brought people together, something that sparked conversations and imagination. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years found themselves standing side by side, sharing stories and memories. Some even speculated about the piano's origin, wondering who had owned it and why it had been left behind. One afternoon, a local historian was invited to inspect the piano. He carefully examined its design, noting the craftsmanship and the age of the wood. He ran his fingers over the keys, gently pressing them to hear faint sounds that had survived decades of neglect. "This piano is special," he said, eyes shining with excitement. "It's more than just an instrument. It's a piece of our town's history, a connection to the people and music of the past. Whoever played this must have had great skill." The historian's words only fueled the town's fascination. People began to imagine who might have played the piano, what songs they performed, and how music had once filled the mansion's halls. The idea that a forgotten piano could bring the town together and spark such curiosity was almost unbelievable. It was as if the piano had been waiting, not just to be discovered, but to remind the town of something important. Something about history, memory, and the power of music. Even the children felt drawn to the piano. They would sit on the dusty floor nearby, pretending to play, while their parents watched and smiled. Some older residents shared stories of attending concerts in their youth, remembering the way music could make people feel joy, sadness, and hope all at once. The piano had become more than an object. It had become a symbol of connection, of something lost and now found. As the days passed, the mansion became a small hub of activity. People from all over the town came to see the piano, each with their own thoughts and emotions. Some wanted to play it, others wanted simply to touch it, to feel the texture of the keys and the smoothness of the wood. Everyone agreed on one thing. This piano was not ordinary. It had survived the passage of time, and its discovery had awakened a sense of wonder that the town had not felt in decades. By the end of the week, the piano had become a topic of conversation everywhere. Cafes, markets, and schools were filled with speculation and excitement. What songs could it play? Who had owned it? Why had it been forgotten? These questions lingered in the air, keeping everyone on edge, waiting for answers. The piano had transformed from a dusty, abandoned object into the heart of the town, capturing the imagination of everyone who saw it. The discovery of the piano was more than just an unexpected find. It was a reminder that some things, even when hidden away for years, can return to impact lives in profound ways. The town felt a renewed sense of connection to its past, to its history, and to one another. And deep down, everyone sensed that this was only the beginning of a story that would reveal something truly remarkable, something that could touch hearts and perhaps even change the town forever. Once the piano had been discovered and townspeople had seen it, the question became, what to do next? The instrument was old and fragile. Its wood had cracks, the keys were sticky in places, and dust covered almost every inch. No one wanted to touch it carelessly. So, the town called in a local piano tuner, a man who had worked with instruments for decades and who knew how to bring old pianos back to life. When the tuner first entered the mansion, he walked slowly, taking in every detail. The grand piano sat silently in the corner, looking both majestic and sad. He knelt down and examined the keys one by one. Some of them had deep stains, while others made a faint squeak when pressed. The pedals were rusted, but the tuner smiled to himself. He loved challenges, and this piano was full of history. He felt as if it were speaking to him, asking to be played again. He began carefully cleaning each key with soft cloths, removing the layers of dust that had accumulated over decades. Every stroke revealed a hint of its original white and black colors. As he worked, he found small details in the wood carvings on the piano's edges, intricate designs that spoke of craftsmanship that was rare today. The more he cleaned, the more he could see the piano's former beauty. It was a piece of art, not just an instrument. After cleaning, he moved on to tuning. He pressed each key, listening to the faint sound that it made, and adjusted the strings gently. The sound that came out was soft at first, almost hesitant, but it held a strange richness. The tuner knew that once all the strings were tuned, the piano would sing again. He worked patiently, hour after hour, never rushing, understanding that this piano had a story, and it deserved respect. While the tuner worked, a small crowd gathered outside the mansion's windows. People were curious to hear the first notes. Rumors spread. Some said it might sound magical. Others imagined it could even play music on its own. Children pressed their faces against the glass, their eyes wide with anticipation, imagining the piano's melodies filling the dusty halls. Finally, after days of cleaning and tuning, the tuner lifted his hands over the keys and pressed the first note. It rang out softly, trembling at first, then steadying into a clear, full sound. Everyone who heard it was surprised. It was more than just a piano sound. It was rich, warm, and emotional. The tuner played a few simple notes, and the piano seemed to respond, as if it had been waiting for this moment. There was a sense of life in the instrument that hadn't been there for decades. The tuner then invited a local young pianist to try it. She hesitated for a moment, unsure if she could handle such a fragile, historic piano. But when she placed her hands on the keys, It felt like the piano welcomed her. Her fingers glided over the keys, and the first song she played brought a hush over the small crowd. Even those who had been skeptical about the piano's value felt their hearts lift. The music was beautiful, touching, and haunting at the same time. It told a story without words, a story of the past and of forgotten moments now remembered. As the days passed, more people came to witness the piano's revival. Some brought sheet music that had been passed down in their families, hoping to try it on the grand instrument. Others simply wanted to sit quietly near it and listen. The mansion, once silent and abandoned, began to fill with laughter, conversation, and music. Children learned to play simple songs, while older musicians explored more complex melodies. Everyone felt connected to something bigger than themselves, a shared experience that reminded them of the town's history and the power of music. The tuner continued his work, fine-tuning every note and repairing small damages he discovered along the way. He replaced a few broken strings, adjusted the pedals so they worked smoothly, and polished the wood until it shone. Each improvement made the piano sing more clearly, and the town felt its excitement grow. People started to realize that this piano was more than an old instrument. It was a bridge to the past, carrying emotions and stories that had been hidden for years. One afternoon, while cleaning, the tuner discovered a small, hidden compartment inside the piano. It was carefully built, almost invisible unless someone knew where to look. Inside were old pieces of sheet music, yellowed with age, and a few folded letters. The letters were delicate, and the ink was fading, but even from a distance, it was clear that they were personal notes. The tuner carefully showed them to the young pianist, and together they realized that the piano had been part of someone's life, not just an object. News of the hidden letters and sheet music spread quickly. The town became even more fascinated with the piano. People speculated about who had written the letters, what music had been composed, and why such treasures had been forgotten for so long. Historians and journalists came to examine the piano and its contents. The mansion, once a forgotten corner of the town, had become a place of discovery and wonder. The piano soon became a symbol for the town. It reminded everyone that even when something seems lost or forgotten, it can return to make a difference. Children learned that music could be a way to connect with history, and adults were reminded that life could surprise them in unexpected ways. The piano's revival brought the town together, creating a shared story that everyone could be part of. Evenings were now filled with music. People would gather in the mansion, listening to the piano play as the sun set behind the old oak trees. Some played songs that had been written decades ago, while others composed new melodies inspired by the piano's unique sound. The atmosphere was magical, filled with the warmth of community and the joy of rediscovery. The piano had become more than just an instrument. It had become a keeper of memories, a teacher of emotions, and a symbol of hope. The tuner, who had spent so many hours restoring the piano, often watched quietly from a corner, smiling. He knew that his work was not just about fixing strings or cleaning keys, it was about helping people reconnect with something meaningful. He had seen the piano touch hearts, spark creativity, and bring a small town together in a way that no one had expected. The instrument had been forgotten for decades, but now it had a voice again, and its music carried far beyond the mansion's walls. The town began planning for more events with the piano. Concerts were organized, inviting musicians from nearby towns. Children who had never played music before were inspired to learn. Local artists painted and wrote stories about the piano and its history. Everyone wanted to be part of the piano's story, to witness its revival, and to share the experience with others. Through it all, the piano seemed to grow stronger, its music richer and more expressive. The young pianist, who had first played it after the tuner finished restoring it, became closely connected to the instrument. Each time she played, she discovered new depths, new emotions, and new stories hidden within its sound. People began to call her the piano's voice, but she insisted that it was the piano itself that told the story, and she was merely listening and sharing it. By the end of the season, the piano had fully returned to life. It was no longer a forgotten object hidden under dust and cobwebs. It was a centerpiece of the town, bringing joy, curiosity, and emotion to everyone who experienced it. The mansion, once abandoned, was now alive with music, laughter, and the energy of a community united by a shared treasure. The discovery and restoration of the piano had become more than just an event. It was the beginning of a journey that would continue to inspire and move the town for years to come. As the piano's revival continued, the town's curiosity grew stronger. People began to talk not just about its sound, but about the life it once had, the people who had played it, and the stories it had silently witnessed. Local historians began digging through town records, old newspapers, and family albums, hoping to uncover the piano's origin. They discovered that the mansion had belonged to a family known for their love of music, particularly a woman who had been a skilled pianist in the early 1900s. She was well known for her performances, and tales of her talent had survived in scattered mentions across old documents and letters. The more the townspeople learned, the more fascinated they became. It was as if the piano had been waiting not just to be restored, but to reconnect the town with a forgotten part of its history. People began sharing memories and stories passed down from grandparents, about dances held in the mansion, evenings of music and laughter, and the magic that filled the rooms whenever someone sat at the piano. Even those who had never attended a performance could imagine it vividly, as though the piano itself invited them to step back in time. Children were particularly drawn to the stories. They would sit near the piano, listening intently, imagining the woman who had once played it, her fingers dancing across the keys, and the music filling every corner of the mansion. Teachers in the town began incorporating the piano's story into lessons, using it as a way to teach history, art, and music. The mansion and the piano became living classrooms, where the past came alive in a way that books alone could not capture. One afternoon, the young pianist who had first played the piano after its restoration decided to explore some of the sheet music found in the hidden compartment. The notes were old, faded, and handwritten, but they carried a charm that modern printed music could not replicate. She carefully played one piece, and the sound that came from the piano was delicate yet hauntingly beautiful. The music told a story of longing, hope, and quiet strength. Those who heard it were moved, some even shedding tears, as the piano seemed to reach deep into their hearts. The discovery of the sheet music sparked even more excitement. Musicians from nearby towns were invited to the mansion to try the pieces, adding their own interpretation while preserving the original spirit. The piano had become a bridge not only to the past but also to the present, inspiring creativity and collaboration. Each performance revealed more about the piano's history, the woman who had played it, and the emotions captured in every note. As the town grew more involved, local artists began to contribute in their own way. Painters created portraits of the mansion and the piano, trying to capture its elegance and the aura that seemed to surround it. Writers crafted short stories inspired by the music, blending fact and imagination to bring the piano's history to life. Even photographers visited the mansion, capturing the play of light on the piano's polished wood, and the way the room seemed to hold its breath when a note was played. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a source of inspiration for the entire community. The mansion itself started to change along with the piano. Volunteers cleaned the rooms, repaired windows, and restored parts of the walls that had fallen into disrepair. It became clear that the mansion, once forgotten, had the potential to become a cultural hub for the town. People could host music nights, art exhibitions, and educational programs, all centered around the piano and its story. The revival of the piano had sparked a revival of the mansion as well, bringing new life to a place that had been silent for decades. One evening, the young pianist decided to hold a small concert for the townspeople. Invitations were informal, spread by word of mouth, but almost everyone came. Families brought blankets to sit on the floor, children sat cross-legged near the piano, and older residents leaned forward in anticipation. When she began to play, the room fell silent, captivated by the sound that had been hidden for so long. Each note seemed to tell a story, not just of the woman who had composed it, but of the town itself, of the people who had lived and laughed and loved there. As the concert continued, it became clear that the piano was more than just a musical instrument. It was a keeper of memories, a storyteller, and a source of connection for the town. People who had never spoken to each other found themselves sharing reactions, emotions, and interpretations of the music. The piano had a way of bringing people together, transcending age, background, and experience. It created a shared experience that reminded everyone of the beauty and power of music. After the concert, conversations continued long into the evening. People speculated about the mansion's history, the piano's previous owners, and the life of the woman who had composed the music. Children asked endless questions, eager to know more about the piano and the music it could create. Adults reflected on their own memories, stories, and experiences, realizing that the piano had awakened something inside them that had been dormant for years. It was as if the piano had not only been restored, but had restored a sense of wonder and curiosity in the town itself. The next few weeks were filled with activity. Musicians practiced daily, new sheet music was discovered, and the mansion slowly transformed into a place of creativity. People began to recognize the value of preserving history, of keeping stories alive, and of nurturing talent. The piano had sparked a movement in the town, encouraging everyone to engage with the arts, history, and community in ways they had not before. Local schools began scheduling trips to the mansion. Children were introduced to the piano, allowed to play under supervision, and encouraged to explore the music that had once been hidden. Teachers emphasized the importance of listening, feeling, and understanding music as a form of expression. The mansion became a place where history, music, and education intersected, all thanks to a piano that had been forgotten for decades. As spring turned into summer, the town began to anticipate an even larger event. Plans were made for a formal concert, featuring not only the young pianist but also visiting musicians and historians who would tell the story of the piano. It was decided that the mansion would be open to the public, allowing people from nearby towns to witness the piano's magic. The excitement was palpable, as everyone felt they were part of something special, a story that had been rediscovered and was now unfolding in real time. Through it all, the piano remained the heart of the mansion. Its sound, once silent for so many years, now resonated throughout the town, connecting people, inspiring creativity, and reminding everyone of the beauty that can be found in the most unexpected places. The discovery had been just the beginning. The restoration and exploration of the piano had opened a door to a world of history, music, and emotion that touched every resident. The town had been transformed, and the piano's story was still being written, note by note, day by day, bringing joy, wonder, and a sense of shared history to everyone who experienced it. The anticipation in the town grew as the day of the public performance approached. Everyone was talking about it, sharing their excitement and imagining what it would feel like to hear the piano play once more in the mansion's grand hall. People came early, eager to secure a good spot where they could see and hear every note. Families arrived together, children bouncing with excitement, while older residents recalled stories of when music had been the center of social life decades ago. There was a sense of energy in the air, as if the mansion itself was waking up to greet its visitors. The young pianist who had helped restore the piano spent hours preparing for the performance. She carefully chose the pieces, selecting some that had been discovered in the hidden compartment of the piano and others that she had composed herself. Each song was chosen to show not only the piano's sound but also the depth of emotion it could carry. As she practiced, she felt a strong connection to the instrument. It was as if the piano had a memory, a soul, and it was sharing that story with her, helping her find the perfect way to bring it to life. When the concert finally began, a hush fell over the crowd. The lights were soft, highlighting the piano's polished wood and the intricate carvings along its edges. The young pianist placed her hands on the keys, took a deep breath, and began to play. The first notes were gentle, almost hesitant, but they quickly grew in strength and clarity. The sound was warm and full, filling every corner of the hall. People were amazed. It was as though the piano had been waiting all these years for this moment, and now it could finally speak again. As the performance continued, the audience was captivated. Each song seemed to tell a story, Some pieces brought a sense of nostalgia, making people remember their own lives and the memories they held. Other songs were joyful and uplifting, causing smiles to spread across faces young and old. The music was more than just sound. It was emotion, history, and connection all wrapped into each note. People felt tears prick their eyes, and laughter bubbled up unexpectedly. The piano had a way of reaching into the hearts of those who listened, touching something deep inside that words could not express. The young pianist also performed the sheet music that had been found in the hidden compartment. These pieces were delicate and full of subtle emotion, and they seemed to tell a story about the person who had once played them. The audience was moved by the thought that these compositions had been silent for so long, waiting to be heard again. There was a sense of mystery and wonder, as if the music was bridging the gap between past and present, allowing people to experience a piece of history firsthand. Between songs, the young pianist shared brief stories about the piano's discovery and the letters found inside it. She explained how the piano had been forgotten for decades and how it had been restored to its former glory. People listened intently, fascinated by the idea that an instrument could carry so much history and emotion. The stories made the music even more powerful, as the audience could now imagine the hands that had once played these keys and the life that had surrounded the piano in its earlier days. As the concert went on, the mansion seemed to come alive. Light from the windows glinted off the piano's polished surface, and the walls, once silent and empty, now resonated with music and life. People in the audience felt a strong sense of connection, not only to the piano and the young pianist but also to each other. Strangers whispered to one another about the beauty of the music, families shared smiles, and older residents quietly reflected on memories they had long forgotten. The piano had created a shared experience that touched everyone in the room. After the performance, the audience erupted into applause. People were on their feet, cheering, clapping, and calling out praise for both the piano and the young pianist. There was a sense of awe and gratitude, as if everyone present had witnessed something rare and precious. Many stayed afterward, gathering around the piano, touching the keys, and whispering about what they had just experienced. The piano had not only been played but had spoken to the hearts of everyone in the room. The event sparked conversations throughout the town for days. People talked about the music, the piano's history, and the emotions it had stirred. Some were inspired to learn more about music themselves, while others felt a renewed appreciation for the town's history and cultural heritage. Local shops displayed small replicas of pianos, books about music and history sold quickly, and teachers incorporated lessons about the piano into their classes. The concert had sparked a movement, bringing music and creativity back into the daily lives of the townspeople. Even those who had not attended the performance felt the impact. News of the concert spread through social media and word of mouth, reaching neighboring towns. People marveled at the story of a forgotten piano brought back to life and the emotions it had inspired. The mansion became a place of curiosity, drawing visitors from far and wide, eager to see the piano and hear it play. The town, once quiet and overlooked, had become a center of music and culture, all because of one instrument that had been forgotten but was now cherished. The young pianist continued to perform regularly, each concert bringing new energy and emotion. She explored more of the sheet music found in the piano, experimented with her own compositions, and invited other musicians to collaborate. Each performance was unique, allowing the piano to reveal different aspects of its character and history. The audience continued to grow, and the mansion's grand hall became a place where people could experience the power of music in a way that connected them to the past and to each other. In addition to music, the mansion began hosting events where people could share their own stories and memories. Residents brought old photographs, letters, and memorabilia, creating a living history exhibit that complemented the piano's legacy. The mansion became a place of learning, creativity, and community, and the piano remained at the heart of it all. Its discovery and revival had done more than restore an instrument. It had restored a sense of connection, pride, and inspiration to the town. Over time, the piano's story became a symbol of hope and resilience. It showed that even forgotten things could have value, that beauty and history could be hidden in unexpected places, and that rediscovery could bring people together. Children learned that patience and care could bring treasures back to life, while adults were reminded that the past was never truly gone if it was remembered and honored. The piano had become a teacher, a storyteller, and a unifying force, touching lives in ways that were both profound and simple. The young pianist often reflected on her role in the piano's revival. She felt grateful to be part of something larger than herself, to help share the piano's story and music with the world. She understood that the piano was more than an instrument. It was a keeper of history, emotion, and connection. Each time she played, she felt as if she was listening to the echoes of the past and bringing them to life in the present. Her performances had become a way to honor the piano, the town, and the people who had been part of its journey. By the end of the season, the mansion had transformed completely. What had once been an abandoned building was now alive with music, laughter, and creativity. The piano stood proudly in its corner, polished and tuned, ready to share its voice with anyone who would listen. People from near and far came to see it, hear it, and be part of its story. The town had been changed forever, all because of a forgotten piano that had been discovered in 2026 and had revealed something truly extraordinary. Its music continued to inspire, connect, and remind everyone that beauty, history, and emotion could survive even the longest silence. After the public performance, the piano's story continued to unfold in ways no one had expected. The young pianist was curious to explore more of the sheet music that had been hidden inside the piano, so she spent long hours carefully going through each piece. The notes were delicate, some nearly faded with age, yet they held a certain elegance that modern music often lacked. Each piece seemed to tell a story, full of emotion, longing, and hope, as if the person who had composed them had left a part of their soul behind. As she played these pieces, the mansion became alive again. The music floated through the rooms, filling corners that had been silent for decades. People passing by stopped to listen, even those who had never attended a concert before. The piano's sound was powerful yet gentle, moving through the air with a life of its own. It wasn't just music, it was a connection to history, to emotions, and to the stories of people long gone but not forgotten. One day, while carefully examining the piano, she discovered a small hidden compartment that had previously gone unnoticed. Inside were folded letters and a few personal notes. The ink had faded, and the paper was fragile, but it was clear that these documents held private stories. Reading them, she realized that the piano had been more than an instrument. It had been part of someone's life, a companion in moments of joy, sorrow, and reflection. The letters spoke of dreams, love, loss, and ambition, revealing the humanity of the person who had once played the piano so skillfully. Sharing these discoveries with the townspeople created a new wave of excitement. Everyone was curious about the life behind the piano, who had written the letters, and what the music meant. Local historians were invited to examine the notes, and soon the community learned more about the woman who had once owned the piano. She had been a gifted pianist, admired by many, but her life had been filled with challenges and hardships. The piano had been her refuge, her voice, and now, decades later, it was telling her story to a new generation. Musicians from nearby towns were invited to play these newly discovered pieces, bringing their own interpretations to the music. Each performance revealed new layers, capturing the attention of the audience and keeping everyone engaged. People began to understand that this piano was not just a tool for creating sound. It was a storyteller, a keeper of emotions, and a bridge connecting the past to the present. Every note played was a reminder that history could come alive in ways that were beautiful, moving, and unforgettable. The mansion's hall became a place for regular gatherings. Families came to listen, children learned the basics of piano, and older residents shared their memories and interpretations of the music. It was no longer just a location for a single performance. It had become a hub for creativity, reflection, and community. The piano had sparked a movement that went beyond music. It encouraged people to explore art, history, and personal stories. People were inspired to create, share, and connect in ways they had never imagined. One evening, After a particularly moving performance, the young pianist noticed that some of the audience members were quietly crying, while others smiled through tears. The music had reached them in ways words could not. It stirred memories, emotions, and a sense of connection that was rare and precious. People realized that the piano had the ability to touch hearts deeply, to communicate feelings that had no need for explanation. It had become more than an instrument. It was a voice, a presence, and a symbol of hope and resilience. As the story of the piano spread, journalists and writers came to the town, eager to document the discovery and its impact. Articles were written, interviews conducted, and soon people from outside the town wanted to visit, to witness the magic of the piano themselves. The mansion became a cultural landmark, a place where history, music, and community converged. People traveled from nearby regions to see the piano, hear its music, and feel a connection to the stories it had preserved for so long. The young pianist continued to explore new pieces and compositions, often experimenting with her own music inspired by the piano's unique sound. She invited other musicians to collaborate, creating performances that blended old melodies with new interpretations. The audience remained captivated, eager to hear every note, every variation, and every story the piano could convey. The mansion echoed with creativity, laughter, and the joy of shared discovery. Local schools began incorporating the piano's story into their lessons, teaching children about history, music, and the importance of preserving the past. Students learned about the life of the woman who had played the piano, the meaning behind her music, and how instruments could carry emotions and stories across generations. The piano became a tool for education, inspiration, and engagement, helping young people understand the power of art and connection. In addition to performances, the mansion hosted workshops and storytelling sessions. Residents brought old photographs, letters, and other memorabilia, creating exhibits that complemented the piano's history. The mansion became a living museum, where people could learn, create, and experience the magic of music and memory firsthand. The piano was always at the center, a constant reminder of the beauty, emotion, and stories that could be preserved through time. As months passed, the town grew more united around the piano. People who had never spoken to one another before now shared experiences, collaborated on creative projects, and participated in musical events. The piano had sparked a sense of community and pride that transcended generations. Children learned patience and dedication by practicing music, while adults reflected on the richness of their town's history. The piano had become a source of inspiration, education, and connection for everyone. The young pianist often felt a deep sense of responsibility. She understood that she was not just playing the piano for herself, but for the town, for the memory of its past, and for the future generations who would one day hear its music. Each performance was an opportunity to honor the instrument, the woman who had played it, and the community that had embraced it. She realized that the piano had chosen her as much as she had chosen it, forming a bond that went beyond music and history. Through all these experiences, the piano remained a symbol of resilience and beauty. It had survived decades of neglect and silence, only to be rediscovered and restored to a place of honor. Its music reminded everyone that even forgotten things could carry immense value, that stories could endure through time, and that emotions could be shared across generations. The piano had transformed a quiet town into a hub of creativity, connection, and inspiration. The young pianist and the townspeople continued to explore the piano's treasures, discovering new pieces, letters, and memories. Each day brought something new to learn and share. The mansion and its piano had become a place where history, music, and community intersected, creating a living story that could touch hearts, spark imagination, and bring people together. It was a reminder that even in a world filled with noise and distraction, something beautiful and meaningful could still be found, cherished, and shared. By the end of the year, the piano had fully reclaimed its place as the heart of the mansion. It had not only been restored physically but had also been given a voice that resonated with the town, the people, and visitors from far beyond. Its music continued to inspire, connect, and teach, proving that the power of art and history could survive even the longest silence. The piano's journey from forgotten to celebrated had become a testament to the strength of memory, the magic of discovery, and the ability of music to touch every heart it reached. As the months passed, the piano became more than just an instrument for the town. It became a symbol of hope, history, and connection. People of all ages continued to visit the mansion to see it, play it, or simply sit nearby and listen. Its music brought a sense of calm, joy, and inspiration that no one had expected when the dusty tarp was first lifted to reveal it. Each note told a story, and every song seemed to carry a piece of the past into the present, creating a shared experience that united the town in a unique and powerful way. The young pianist who had first brought the piano to life continued to play regularly. She had grown closer to the instrument, feeling as though it were a living friend, guiding her fingers and sharing its emotions through each melody. She discovered new depths in the piano's sound, noticing subtle variations and tones she had never heard before. Sometimes she would play late into the evening, when the mansion was quiet, and imagine the people who had sat there decades ago, listening to the same notes that she now brought to life. The piano had a way of connecting past and present, bridging generations with its music. The town embraced the piano's influence in many ways. Local artists painted portraits of the piano and the mansion, capturing the warm glow of the hall and the beauty of the restored instrument. Writers created stories inspired by the piano's music, blending history and imagination into narratives that brought the mansion and its past to life. Photographers visited to capture the play of sunlight on the polished wood, the shine of the keys, and the expressions of those who played it. The piano had sparked a cultural revival, inspiring creativity and passion in people who had never before considered themselves artists. Schools in the town incorporated the piano into their lessons. Children learned about the woman who had once played it, the music that had been composed, and the historical events surrounding its original home. Teachers encouraged students to try playing the piano, to write their own music, or to create art inspired by its story. The mansion became a classroom without walls, a place where history, music, and creativity could coexist. Students left with a sense of connection to their town, their past, and the stories that had shaped it. Visitors from other towns and cities also began arriving, drawn by the story of the forgotten piano and the music that had captivated a community. They came to see the mansion, listen to the performances, and experience the emotion that the piano could convey. The town welcomed them, proud to share the instrument that had been rediscovered and restored. For many, the piano became a symbol of resilience and beauty, proof that forgotten things could still hold immense value and meaning. As the young pianist continued to explore the piano's treasures, she discovered even more hidden sheet music and letters tucked into the piano's frame. Each piece provided new insight into the life of the woman who had once played the instrument. The letters spoke of love, ambition, and challenges faced, while the music carried her emotions, hopes, and dreams. Playing these pieces allowed the audience to connect not just with the piano, but with the person behind it, creating a sense of intimacy and understanding that went beyond mere performance. The mansion itself transformed over time. Volunteers and residents repaired broken windows, cleaned the rooms, and restored the walls to their former elegance. The grand hall, once silent and abandoned, became a place of warmth, creativity, and community. People would gather for concerts, art exhibits, storytelling sessions, and workshops. The piano remained at the center of it all, a reminder of what had been rediscovered and what could be shared. Its presence encouraged people to come together, to learn, to create, and to celebrate the history that had once been forgotten. The young pianist often reflected on the piano's journey. She understood that her role was more than playing music. She was helping to preserve history, to share emotions, and to inspire others. She felt a deep connection to the instrument, as if it trusted her to continue its story. Each performance was not just about notes and melodies, but about communicating feelings and experiences that transcended time. She had become a bridge between generations, helping the piano speak for those who had played it long ago and for those who would play it in the future. The town grew more connected through the piano. People who had rarely interacted found themselves discussing music, history, and memories. Children shared their excitement with grandparents, learning to play songs and hearing stories of the past. Adults reflected on the piano's history and what it meant to their community. Even visitors who came only once left with a sense of wonder, a feeling that they had witnessed something special and timeless. The piano had created a sense of belonging, reminding everyone that art and history could unite people in ways that were simple, profound, and enduring. Over time, formal concerts became regular events. The young pianist invited other musicians, allowing them to explore the piano's unique sound and the hidden sheet music. Each performance was different, offering new perspectives and emotions. Audiences were consistently amazed by the depth and beauty of the music, feeling a connection to the past while experiencing the creativity of the present. The piano had become a storyteller, conveying its history through melodies, harmonies, and rhythms that everyone could feel. The hidden letters and personal notes continued to be shared with the community, providing insight into the life of the woman who had once played the piano. People were moved by her story, her struggles, and her triumphs. They saw in her music the reflection of human emotion and experience, and they felt honored to carry forward the legacy she had left behind. The piano had become a living memorial, not just of one person's talent, but of the ability of music and art to preserve life, emotion, and history. The mansion also became a place for workshops and community projects. Children learned music, painting, and writing, while adults shared their skills and experiences. The piano served as the central focus, reminding everyone of the beauty and value of creativity. Families attended together, neighbors collaborated, and strangers became friends through shared appreciation of music and history. The piano had created a vibrant community, united not by necessity but by inspiration and love for art. Even as the years passed, the piano remained a source of wonder. It had survived neglect, been restored with care, and now brought joy and inspiration to countless people. Its sound continued to evolve as different musicians played it, revealing new tones, harmonies, and emotions with each performance. The young pianist continued her dedication, exploring more of the hidden music, writing new compositions inspired by its tone, and guiding the next generation of musicians who came to learn and play. The piano had changed the town in ways that no one could have imagined when it was first discovered under a dusty tarp. It had revived history, inspired creativity, strengthened community, and touched countless hearts. The mansion, once forgotten, had become a cultural center, alive with music, stories, and emotion. The piano remained at the heart of it all, a symbol of resilience, beauty, and the enduring power of art. Finally, the townspeople realized that the piano's journey was far from over. It had once been forgotten, then rediscovered, and now it was a source of inspiration for everyone who encountered it. Its music reminded people that even things that seem lost can be found, that history can be cherished, and that emotions can be shared across time. The piano had become more than a musical instrument. It had become a legacy, a teacher, and a bridge connecting generations. Its story, carried in every note and every performance, continued to resonate, ensuring that the past, present, and future would remain harmoniously connected through the power of music.